Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of Wednesday Season 2, Part 1. If you haven't watched, make sure you watch it first, then come back to this review. So, I'm going to break down my thoughts about each episode, just scratching the surface of each episode, not a real big deep dive, but my general thoughts of everything that we kind of see go on that are big plot points. So, Episode 1, I was excited to see was directed by Tim Burton himself. And Jenna Ortega talked about Season 2 possibly being darker, and it definitely starts that way, especially having this story with the scalper serial killer and that she ends up scalping him, which was really cool. And it reminded me of Season 1 where you had the scene with the piranhas and you have this really cool sequence in the beginning of the show that sets the stage. It's darker than anything you're going to see after. It's a little annoying that it didn't kind of keep that tone towards the rest of the show. I thought we get a little more of it in this season, but it again just ditches it. But it's always good to be back at Nevermore, and there's a lot of charm to Nevermore, and that's still here. I like that Pugsley is going to the school now, so he is becoming a character on his own right, and it makes sense for her to have a little brother in the school with her. It's interesting to see Wednesday is now a celebrity at the school and how she deals with that, and that her character, true to form, rejects being put on a pedestal. We'll see her burn this art of her with the sword and celebrating her win from last season. What excites me is seeing Steve Buscemi now being the principal as Principal Bart. I think he does a great job. He's always good, and he fits into that wackiness of a Tim Burton-esque project. I also like the decision they made. You see right away that Catherine Zeta-Jones, aka Morticia, has a bigger role this season. She's a very important part this season. I think they're driving on how good her scenes with Jenna Ortega last season were and giving that more screen time. Now, we had to see how they kind of write Xavier out here with the awkward scandal that happened with him and why the actor's not in the show anymore. You can look that up online, but they do that with writing letters, which makes sense. It's an effective way to kind of just shoo his character away and give him a little closure, but you know that's going to just drift off and we're going to forget about it. And we know that Jenna Ortega wasn't a big fan about doing the love triangle in Season 1, and I totally agree with that. That was my biggest complaint about having so much of that in Season 1, where you see they actually shift the love triangle to Enid this season with Bruno and Ajax. Now, is that love triangle very effective? Not really so far. I think that Ajax still is a pretty boring character. We've only learned a little bit about Bruno. I'm excited to see more, but it's not really getting me engaged. You're not really invested in that character of Ajax, which hurts it. And I feel like that it could have been made a little more interesting than just her on a whim switching who she likes over the summer. I think that's cool, but it needed more meat to it than just showing Ajax being upset about it for the first 4 episodes. It just wasn't that interesting. Now, what was a real surprise and a real treat was seeing Tim Burton doing stop motion again. We know he's done this with Night Before Christmas and The Corpse Bride, so it was really cool to see that in the story about the clock cart, which is the skull tree story. And it was a cool concept in having Pugsley to do something interesting while he's at the school. Now, what I also like is them setting up with this first episode that Wednesday has a stalker. It's really interesting, gets you engaged, and it's cool to see Christina Ricci is still out there when they talk about her character. So you realize they're not just scrapping her, and that Wednesday gets this big vision of Enid's grave at the end and that she caused her death because Enid is screaming at her, blaming her. So that gives a really interesting story. That's the main arc of the whole season. It gets a great hook for the end of episode 1. And it's funny, I didn't catch this. I'm watching Buffy and Angel for the first time right now while I'm watching this. And I didn't catch in season 1, but now I see all that inspiration of Buffy in the show and Angel, even with you see the visions just like Cordelia with Wednesday. But overall, the first episode for me, good at setting the stage. There's a lot of setup, so it's a little slow. You're kind of just getting yourself set and used to everything again at Nevermore with all the new faces as well. So overall, I'll give it a 7.7. Now, with episode 2, what made me smile big time was seeing Christopher Lloyd, who played Uncle Fester in the original Addams Family, and that he is just a head here, and he's Dr. Orloff. And it reminds me, actually, I think it was a villain in Umbrella Academy. I don't even remember anymore, but there was like that talking fish, the way he talks. It reminds me a lot of that, but it's really cool and fun to see. A standout moment for me in this episode was Wednesday with the driving teacher and her saying she's the captain now. That was really fun to see. And we get another new character in Dr. Fairburn, who is played by Thandie Newton, who I love from Westworld. So it's good to see her in this. And that was the first character I was like, okay, this person is nefarious. And I was really leaning to she was the main stalker, which we know is not the case, which we'll get to that twist later. Another bright spot in this episode was seeing Thing drinking in the house Enid made for him. That was so great because everyone forgot it was his birthday. And I love that house she made for him. They're, again, talking about the charm the show can do really well. And that was definitely a moment of that. And again, I always say my favorite thing about this show, anything with Wednesday and Thing together really is a bright spot. It always works so well. And out of these four, this was my favorite episode, episode 2. I think it had the best pacing. And it got really exciting here when Bruno and Enid got captured and Wednesday trying to save them. And what they do with the stalker is it's like this jigsaw-like voice game. And there's all these books of the great horror writers, and her having to do the typewriter to answer what was missing was really fun and a very suspenseful moment. But this is just a misdirect. What we're actually seeing is there's like two stalkers here. The first stalker being Agnes. So Agnes is revealed to be the powers of invisible. We saw her a little bit in episode 1, but they don't get into her. That's just that she was obsessed with Wednesday. And at first I was like, oh, this is like from Harry Potter, Colin and Creevy type character. But as it goes on, you're starting to see she's more and more like a Luna Lovegood character. I also like she's got her hair like Wednesday, being a big fan of hers. And she fits right in, and she's definitely the standout new character for this season, and I think she's been great. And it also works that they're having this through line where Enid is jealous of her, while Wednesday would be able to point out that Enid's consumed right now in her love triangle. So a smart thing to use a character for Wednesday to spend time with if she's not going to be so invested into love stories this season. Now, at first, I think the Slurp zombie was cool and that it was let loose, but I think it got almost too impactful of this just like goofy zombie. I know it's connected to literally having the clock heart, but right now it's okay to me. I just think it almost with the eye too, it looks too much like the Hyde character of Tyler. That I think was frustrating me in what he is. But overall, like I said, this was my favorite episode of the first 4, so I'm giving this one an 8.2. Just really good pacing, exciting stuff going on. And now at episode 3, I like we get a bat reference to Morticia, that she's able to hear Wednesday walking in because of that kind of hearing of a bat. And this is where this episode shifts to Camp Jericho. Now, before we even get into Camp Jericho, this is also where we're seeing Bianca is with her mom at the hotel. I've never been that interested in Bianca's story, and I thought the season maybe would get more gripping with it. I still am not that interested in Bianca's story with her mom. I think it's just kind of hanging out there, and maybe there's just too many characters right now that they're trying to give a little weight, but trying to give all of them a little weight. No one's getting that much weight, and I think that's a big problem I have with this season so far. But she's just one of those things where when her story comes up, it's just not getting me invested yet. I hope it picks up the second half. Now with Camp Jericho, we see it's the Outcasts versus Cadets, and it obviously is inspired by the Addams Family values where they were at a campsite. And it's cool anytime the show involves normies. I like that because that's what was so effective about Wednesday around normies in the original Addams Family movie, seeing how she interacts with that and how they react to her. And we see Anthony Michael Hall, who we know is the nerd from Breakfast Club, and it's just so funny seeing him playing a completely opposite character of that here. Now, it got a little weird and maybe was a little too slow in the beginning at the camp and kind of got sidetracked, but then it was still fun sequence when they were playing each other. I love the bees happening here. That was really cool. But man, there's this moment even here too, even when Enid and Ajax finally talk about breaking up, how she ghosted him, you know, it's just a snoozer with Ajax. He's just a snoozed character. I'm ready to be just moving on from him now. But I do love the comic line after their talk where one of the normies says, I kind of feel bad for that Gorgon. That was really good. Now, my favorite moment of the episode was when Wednesday challenges her mom to a duelo a ciegas, a sword fight. That's his blind duel for the Moody book. Really fun to see that happen. And it was pretty wild seeing Slurp feasting on Anthony Michael Hall's brains. But Wednesday loses her mom, but she saves her from Slurp. So exciting stuff there. And we get this reveal that at first is exciting that, okay, here's Christina Ricci. She's back in the forefront. She is in Willow Hill. But my problem is what happens after and why that fails what was set up, which I'll get to. But overall, I'm giving this episode an 8. One of my favorites of the first 4. Now, this is what's wild because episode 4 is also directed by Tim Burton like episode 1. But episode 1 and episode 4 are actually my least favorites of the season. We get Grandmama's debut here, and the actress who does her is great. I don't think she's had a big moment yet or a big scene that's memorable. But I like where they're going with her character and how she fits into the relationship with Morticia and Wednesday. I also love the humorous moment in this episode when Agnes is peeping on Bruno and Enid when they're getting it on. That was really funny. And I love that Wednesday's book is dropped from an agency that's too sinister and like messed up and she needs help. And she says she won't settle for what she's writing. Like, won't sell her soul. I love that about Wednesday. That was so good. And then Fester comes back, and I'm excited to see him again. We have these shenanigans with him at Willow Hill, but almost too much Fester in this episode, or I was kind of getting a little worn out by it. Or just got a little too goofy. There's a weird balance of tone this season. I feel like it's just not feeling natural. It's feeling odd and throwing you off. Now, a cool scene is this bird attack and Enid having this big moment of saving Thing. I like that. I don't know where this music teacher really fits in the story yet, because she's definitely a red herring at first, thinking she's the stalker, Mrs. Capri, but we'll see. But so far, again, not a very interesting character. But at first, I was engaged with Wednesday is gotta break out Fester now, and they do as a group. I love the zombie piano cover playing in the background, and the reveal that Lois is actually long-term outcast integration studies. So then you're like, okay, well, it's definitely Fairburn, but really the head person is Judy Stonehurst, which is kind of like this lame twist to me, where we barely got any of her, and it just felt goofy when she was revealed, like too Scooby-Doo-like. See, you can tell that with the 4-episode split here, that they definitely set this up as a closing episode for the arcs in these first 4 episodes. Like, they knew it was going to be a split. I like they're aiming for conclusions, but I don't think a lot of these were satisfying. Like, I thought we should have got way more time with Thornhill. Because the problem is, Fester uses electricity, unlocks all these prisoners. But then it unlocks Tyler. And the problem with that is, I was kind of over Tyler too. I think he had his great moment in season 1 and Wrapped. Now they're using this hide again, and he kills the more interesting character in me in Thornhill, because it's played by Christina Ricci. Maybe I'm being biased there, and I love watching her. But I think he kills her. They kind of show that she kills her, but maybe not the way they showed it. But still, just to hype her up in the cliffhanger last episode for her to do absolutely nothing kind of is a letdown. In literally the following episode, she's attacked. And then Slurp's just killing everybody. He's killing Fairburn, he's killing Stonehurst, and he throws Wednesday out a window. And they keep doing this where they do cliffhangers where they tease someone's gonna die, and you're like, you know they're not gonna die, especially Wednesday. She's the main character. So it's a fine cliffhanger, but it's not great. And I think it kind of was rushed the end of this episode, and maybe they rushed to conclude a lot of these things in the first half. So it was a little bit of a letdown for me, this episode 4. So I'm going to give this one a 7.7, like episode 1. Still had its bright spots, enjoyable, but not the best. So when I weighed out all my scores here, for part 1, I'm giving this a 7.9 out of 10. I think it's good, but I want to see better for the second part. You want the show to go up. You don't want it to start going down a little bit, and I feel like it's going down just a little bit. Something is off. There's a little bit of magic missing. That was kind of in season 1. It's really not feeling it there, so I hope they can kind of get more of a better balance of tone in the second half and more engaging stories here. Make Bianca's story more interesting. Make a character like Ajax more interesting. Don't just have Enid fall into this trap of give her the love triangle now and nothing really else to do. So I hope they can get through that. The bright spot definitely here is Agnes and new characters, and Wednesday still having cool detective stuff to do and really good stuff with her mom. I think that's where the show's really shining right now. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'd love to hear your theories about where this is going to go the second half. Any theories you got, let's get the discussion going below. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Hit that sub button so you don't miss one of my reviews of any shows like Wednesday, and please follow me on Instagram. I could use the help right now. It'll help me do so many more things I'd love to do for you guys on this channel, and I'll see you next time.